Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing top 5 decks that you can get for under $15. I am really excited for this one because this deck list is just going to have some really amazing decks for you. And for the purpose of the video guys, keep in mind we are only going to be using the deck core. We're actually not going to be using all the staple cards that you guys can throw into the deck, like Ash Blossoms, like copies of Forbidden Droplets, and those kind of cards that can get kind of expensive. We're going to be using, for the purpose of this video, keeping in mind that you guys can pick up really inexpensive staples like Compulsory Evacuation Device, Forbidden Dress, Forbidden Chalice, and cards like those that can actually bring the cost of the deck way down, because those particular staples are like 5 to 10 cents, something like that, to keep the deck very budget. So we're just going to be considering the $15 to be the core of the deck. And I am really excited to bring this one to you guys because we have some amazing decks that you can actually pick up for $15 on this list, because they are just really good fun decks. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test hands. And we are going to get straight on into this list guys. Number 5 is actually going to be a very interesting deck that just got released in one of the previous sets guys, and it's actually going to be Spriggans. So Spriggans is a very interesting XZ based deck that you can actually pick up for very cheap. It's really an awesome deck because basically the way that the deck works is you actually use a field spell called Great Sand Sea Gold Golgonda, which is a gorgeous card that basically focuses around special summoning your XZ monsters from the extra deck without materials, as long as you don't control another Spriggans XZ, which is really awesome. I really love the way that you basically just get to throw out one of your Spriggans XZs onto your side of the field as long as you don't control another one. That's a really awesome effect to have on a field spell. It doesn't end there with all the awesome effects that this deck can actually pull off. Because it is a machine-based deck, you can use some really awesome cards in this deck, like Machine Duplication as well, because a lot of your machine monsters in this particular deck have low attack points in the main deck, which is really helpful for this particular build. Now, the really cool thing about this deck also is that all of your Spriggans monsters have a shared ability that, regardless of where they are in the hand, the field, or the graveyard, you can actually attach them to your XZ monsters once per turn per name, which is really awesome because basically you always have XZ materials to attach to your monsters, which helps out this deck a lot, because when you special summon them from the extra deck off your Great Sand Sea Gold Golgonda, you really won't have any XZ materials to be able to equip onto your most expensive card in this particular deck, which is Spriggans Explorer. Now, Spriggans Explorer is going to be the most expensive card that you're going to probably need to pick up 3 copies of, and it's actually going to be sitting at around $2, which is not that bad for this particular deck, but everything else in this particular deck is extremely cheap. Don't worry about it, guys. It's actually going to be less than 25 cents, which is what's really awesome about this particular deck, is everything is super cheap. Have you ever wanted to give your opponent the stink eye in the middle of a game of Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, at the number 4 slot, I have the perfect deck for you. It's actually going to be Evil Eye, which is a awesome deck that you guys can pick up for a very cheap price, and it's a really amazing deck as well that focuses around using an equip spell called Evil Eye of Selene. So I actually wanted to read this card to you. I actually have the card right here to read to you guys because it has so many effects that gives your monster. So let's go over those effects really quick, because without this particular card, the deck kind of does fall apart. But there's actually 6 searchers in the particular deck, so you have a lot of ways. With 3 copies of Surzeal and 3 copies of the field spell, you have plenty of ways to get to this particular card. So let's go over this card really quickly. So what it does is the equipped monster has to be an Evil Eye monster. It cannot be destroyed by battle or by your opponent's card effects, and also your opponent cannot target it with card effects either. That gives it a bunch of buffs right off the bat. It pretty much turns it into a Beals of the Diabolic Dragons, which is an insanely powerful synchro monster right off the bat. It also doesn't end there, because each time you activate the equipped monster's effect, or you activate another Evil Eye spell or trap effect, the equipped monster gains 500 life points, and if it does, you lose 500 life points, which is a little bit interesting because as your monster gets bigger, your life points get lower. So you kind of want to end the game pretty quickly with this deck. It also has the ability that the effect remains, or it gains the attack permanently, even if this card leaves the field. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can pay 1,000 life points, banish an Evil Eye spell or trap from your graveyard, except another copy of itself, and then add this or set this card back to your side of the field, which is a really powerful card. This deck is full of cards like that. And the most expensive card for this particular deck is actually Surzeal, which Surzeal is the particular monster that you're going to be playing at 3 in this particular deck, and the one that you're usually going to be equipping your Evil Eye of Selene to, which is actually a Searcher, which is really cool about this deck. And Surzeal is sitting at a very expensive 75 cents a piece. Everything else in this deck is about 50 cents or less, which is what's really, really cool about this deck. It's a very, very budget option that you can always give your opponent the stink eye. In the number 3 slot, guys, we have a deck that will not sting you in the wallet as you try and pick it up, and it's actually going to be Battle Wasp. So Battle Wasp is a very awesome synchro-based wind insect deck that revolves around swarming the field like a swarm of bees. This deck is awesome. I love the way this deck plays. It's actually my favorite type of summoning mechanic, which is actually synchro plays, so I had to include this on this list, guys. It actually is a really amazing deck because it has 3 in-archetype monster reborns in the form of Summoning Swarm, Revival Swarm, and Arbalest, which are just really, really awesome for a synchro deck to have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 in-archetype monster reborns, which is just super helpful for this particular deck. Now, the most expensive card for this particular deck is actually going to be Hama the Conquering Bow, sitting at about $1 for that card, and everything else is just really, really cheap because it was printed in a Battles of Legends set, sitting at about 50 cents to 25 cents or less in that ballpark, which is really, really awesome. The cool thing about this deck is you can actually pick it up in Secret Rare and in Ultra Rare, which is really awesome because it was printed in a Battles of Legends set, which helps out a lot because you actually get a full hollowed out deck. I love that about this deck. And the really cool thing about this particular deck is you can go into some extremely powerful synchro monsters like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, which is really, really helpful, being a wind synchro in its own right, which is just super helpful for this particular deck. The only thing that you have to watch out for is some of your cards will lock you into insect plays, which is a little bit bad, but at the same time, you have plenty of synchro monsters in the extra deck for this particular deck to have for boss monsters that you will not have a problem with that. This deck works really well pure. It works really well with other engines in it, which is really amazing. It's a very customizable deck, which is what's really awesome about this particular deck, guys. So for number 2, guys, we're actually going to be swinging into action with Normal Pendulum. So Normal Pendulum is a great deck for beginner players and a really awesome deck if you're looking for a Pendulum deck to pick up, because basically what the deck actually does is all of the monsters have no monster effects while they're on the field, which is really, really cool. It's very easy to learn because of that, but all of your Pendulum scales actually have buffs for all of your normal monsters, which is really, really cool. From all the way from inflicting battle damage to your opponent and then getting to pop a card on the field, being able to special summon a monster from your hand, or searching the deck, which is really awesome for the way the deck actually plays, to boosting your monster's attack, popping spells or traps. This deck has it all. And what this deck actually benefits from is normal support, from Unexpected Die, Heart of the Underdog, and cards like that, and Summoner's Art as well, are just really helpful for this particular deck to get all sorts of buffs. It actually gets stuff from normal support and Pendulum support as well, which helps out this deck a lot. I love the way this deck actually plays, and basically you focus on just swarming the field with all sorts of different normal Pendulum monsters, and this deck is a deck that actually constantly gets support. Anytime we get a normal Pendulum monster, this deck can benefit from it, which is really awesome. The most expensive card in this particular deck is actually going to be one of the cards I already mentioned, which is Heart of the Underdog, which is an extremely powerful card for this particular deck, because every time you draw a card, it actually, you just reveal it, and if it's a normal monster, even though these count as Pendulum monsters, they still count as normal monsters, you get to draw an additional card. This card can actually draw you upwards of the entire deck if you just play the normal Pendulums along with Heart of the Underdog, which can get you into some insane plays. Now, you would never actually do that and just play the entire deck with nothing but pendulum cards, but everything else on the deck is like 50 cents to 25 cents. So the deck is very, very cheap, and it's very customizable because there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of normal pendulums in this game. You can take this deck to be an XZ deck, you can make it a synchro deck, you can make it just a pendulum deck, but the best way this deck actually functions is as a pendulum link deck, which is the best way because you actually need those link arrows to pendulum summon into those zones from the extra deck, guys. So for number one, guys, we're actually going to be talking about one of my favorite decks of all time, and it's actually going to be Crusadia's. So Crusadia is an insane OTK based deck that can just do so much damage. In the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh, it is probably in the top 5 decks that can actually do the most damage output in the entire game because of their boss monster, Crusadia Equalmax, which is an insanely powerful boss monster that for every monster it points to, it actually gains the attack of those monsters, which is ridiculous. This card can get humongous, and it doesn't even stop there because this card can actually get buffs off the cards it points to with the other Crusadia cards like Crusadia Leonis and Crusadia Maximus that give it piercing damage and double damage as well, which is just crazy, guys. This deck is a very, very budget deck. The most expensive card in this particular deck being Crusadia Equalmax, being at about $1, and everything else in the deck is around 25 to 50 cents. This deck is extremely budget because it was actually reprinted in a Mega 10, and everything when it was initially released was like a super rare or an ultra rare. It was very, very budget when it came out, which is what's really cool about this particular deck. It does so much damage, it gives you so many buffs, and it can even go into some really crazy link plays as well. It is a link-based deck, so you're going to basically normal summon out a Crusadia monster to your field, go into a copy of Magius, special summon another Crusadia to a zone that Magius points to, search the deck, which is really helpful, link away for your Regulex, special summon another Crusadia from your hand to the zone that Link monster points to, and then immediately go for your Equalmax, which then you basically just OTK your opponent. Now, this deck does benefit from another engine, which is Kaiju's, but it's not the only way to build this deck. You can build this deck pure, you can build it with Kaiju's, and you can build it as a Dragon Link build, which is a really awesome build as well. But there's a bunch of ways to actually customize this deck because it's tied into the World Legacy lore, which is really, really awesome. So that's pretty much it for this list, guys. I hope you did enjoy this one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and give us some suggestions for some other top 5 lists down in the comments down below. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.